The film, this film, 3 Days of Destiny, has won 8 national awards. And last week I was just notified that we won the Best Historical Documentary at the New York Independent Film Festival, and I actually won Best Director. So that was a shock. I was thrilled. And this is different from Boys in Blue and Gray in that I told it from the commander's perspective. And as General Lee and General Hill will get into later on, the Battle of Gettysburg was not so cut and dry. It could have turned on a dime. Orders that weren't followed, orders that were followed, commands that didn't get to where they should have been. It really could have gone either way. It wasn't so cut and dry. And that's what I wanted to bring out in this film. And the components that make this film special, I think, I tried to use actual locations where I was filming. I used the Cashtown Inn. I used the Lutheran Seminary, which is the what people think of the Battle of Gettysburg. They think of the cupola, Buford looking out of the cupola. And I actually got permission for General Reynolds and 20 cavalrymen to ride up the sweeping front lawn of the Lutheran Seminary, which is pristine ground in Gettysburg. And it was only because of the Gettysburg University Committee that I could do that. And I'd heard, and I don't know if this is true, but the film Gettysburg that came out in '93 tried to do that, and they didn't allow it. So I thought that was a little better than my cow, that we could do that. And when people see that on screen, they think it's sort of, Hollywood trickery. But how do you superimpose that? And I tell people, no, that's the real ground. That's the Lutheran Seminary. That's General Reynolds, the actor portraying him, and 20 cavalrymen riding up with the flag into battle. But what I'm most proud of, as far as locations, is, and I mentioned this to a couple people, and if you've seen the video that's playing outside, I was able to do a scene that's as close to history as you can get. And that was at the White House of the Confederacy. And I mentioned this to Craig Simmons, that you'll hear a little later on, that I used his book for a lot of my research. And when I read about Jefferson Davis gathering his cabinet men together and bringing Lee in to have a decision of what to do, and Lee spearheading a decision to invade Pennsylvania, I said, well, I've got to involve this as a backstory, because it was really Lee's decision to invade. The Confederate Army was starving in Virginia, and the stark contrast of the Virginia wasteland, basically, and the ornate White House of the Confederacy was what I was looking for, and to tell the backstory, the reasons for invading Pennsylvania. So I contacted the White House of the Confederacy in Richmond, very nice people. I said, I just want to come down to do some exteriors outside. And I said, sure, come on down. And we were on our way to Williamsburg, actually, my wife and I. So they gave my wife and I a private tour. And as we were going through the White House of the Confederacy, we came into the first room, and I said, General Lee stood right here. And the curator said, yes, he used to wipe his muddy boots right in this room. And Mrs. Davis was very upset about that. And we walked into the next room, and it was the formal dining room, which is probably about as big as this room. You're probably assuming that isn't as high. And she said, well, this is where Jefferson Davis used to hold his cabinet meetings and dictated the war. And I said, isn't that funny? I've got a scene in my script that takes place right in this room. And she said, oh yeah. And I said, yeah, let me tell you about it. So I sort of went right into the dialogue of the film, and I said, and Jefferson Davis steps to the window, and he puts his hand on General Lee's shoulder, and he says, General, go with God. And I turned around, and I looked at the curator, and she was like, well, yeah, okay. I said, but it's too bad we can't do the filming in here. Well, let's talk about this. So, a lot of insurance later and negotiations, we were able to film Jefferson Davis's cabinet meeting with General Lee in the actual room in which it happened. So when you see the clip outside, that is the actual formal dining room where that occurred. And I like to tell people that because it's not evident in the film, it's not in any of the notes. So I was very proud of that fact. And the final point I wanted to bring up about the film is I was able to enlist the help of a lot of people that appeared in much bigger Hollywood films, Gods and Generals and Gettysburg. The gentleman who portrays General George Pickett is an actor by the name of James Cho, and he was General B in Gods and Generals. And I don't know if you've seen Gods and Generals, you may have, but General B in Gods and Generals is the general who rides up to Stonewall Jackson and said, "General, our army is retreating. What do we do?" And Jackson says, "Well, we have to charge." So General B rides across to the retreating Virginians, and as the explosions are going off, he says, "Men, we must rally. We must rally and fight." And then the music comes up, and it's a great scene for Jim. Jim did a fantastic job. And he was my General George Pickett. And I was delighted to have him on board. But what's even, for me personally was even better is if you've seen the original Gettysburg movie, which was based on the book The Killer Angels, the movie by Ron Maxwell and Ted Turner that came out in 1993, I believe. I was able to enlist the help of Pat Falsey in the film, and he actually reprises his role as General A.P. Hill in my film, and he appeared in the film Gettysburg with much bigger actors, Martin Sheen and obviously Tom Berenger, and he was great to work with, and he really brought that sort of Hollywood component tie into the movie Gettysburg, which a lot of people watch, at least Civil War buffs. They watch it 20 times, 50 times, 100 times. So I knew that if they recognized Pat Falsey in my film, they would say, "Oh, this film is good. I know that guy." So that was fun. So I'm very proud of the film. As I mentioned, it's done very well. And to wrap up, Robert had mentioned I interviewed James McPherson last night for my new project for PBS. I'm doing Antietam, the Boys in Blue and Gray. And it's a narrative on the Battle of Antietam, which is what I've come to understand as the real turning point of the Civil War in a lot of respects. And I'm in fundraising and production for that, and that should come out in 2005. So I'm still in the Civil War period here. But that's fine. I love it, and I've met so many great people who are in the community that I've made some very good friends. And I'm going to introduce a couple of them next, as I segue here. We have with us, as I mentioned, Pat Falsey and General Meade. We have General A.P. Hill and General Meade. And they're going to come up to give sort of a point-counterpoint discussion of the Battle of Gettysburg. And Pat Falsey is an actor and historian. He lectures across the country on A.P. Hill. He has portrayed A.P. Hill in the 10th movie Gettysburg, as I mentioned, in my film, 3 Days of Destiny. And he's a former president of the Civil War Roundtable. Pat Falsey. And on the other podium is General George Gordon Meade, West Point class of 1835, the commander of the Army of the Potomac after only 3 days in command. General George Gordon Meade.